Hello and welcome to the current and upcoming grant programs for fruit and vegetable farmers. This is the September edition, and my name is Liz Higgins. I'm an extension specialist with Cornell Cooperative Extension's Eastern New York Commercial Hort team. And this month I'm going to be covering New York State Empire Development's New Farmer Grant Fund. If you've participated in other programs, I have switched the format so that from now on I only am covering one grant every single month. But there is an updated list of all of the grants that are available for New York State fruit and vegetable farms on a website that I've developed, as well as the PowerPoint slides and the video from this webinar. The webinar is also available on our Eastern New York Commercial Hort Team's YouTube channel. And the easiest way to find the link is from our team website, which is enych.cce.cornell.edu. And actually the link to the website with all of this other information is also based on our team's website too, if you can't find it. And so with that, let's move into the New Farmer Grant Fund. It's funded by New York State Empire State Development. That's an economic development arm of the state government. Its purpose is to help beginning farmers improve their profitability and really to help them grow. The amount of the grant is unknown. This year it has not been released yet, but in the past 4 years, about $4.19 million has been allocated since this program first started in 2014. So the eligible activities based on the state's website is to help beginning farmers improve their farm profitability through one or both of these goals. And these goals are really important. The first one is to expand agricultural production, so to grow the business either through diversification or season extension. And then the other goal is to advance innovative techniques that increase sustainable practices. And these could be organic farming, food safety, reduction of farm waste, water use. So they really want to see an environmental bent to the farm practices through this investment. And these two are very important. Eligible applicants, you have to be a farm business, and all of the owners have to be in the first 10 years of having an ownership interest in any farm operation. And this has been tightened up since the program first started. The farm has to have also had a minimum of $10,000 in sales and agricultural products grown or raised on the farm. So if you haven't started the farm business yet, you would not be eligible for this grant program. And then obviously you have to be in New York State. So this grant is very unusual in that it covers infrastructure costs, just basic infrastructure costs for agricultural production. So this can include new or used machinery, equipment, supplies, construction or improvement of physical structures. As long as they're used exclusively for agricultural purposes, it would be an eligible expense for this fund. From now, everything I'm going to talk about now is what we know from past rounds because they have not issued the RFA for this year yet. First of all, the timing in the past, so in the past few years, this RFA has come out around October, and then the applications have been due in January. So that's why I'm covering the program now in September so that you can start thinking about it and you're ready for it and you can hit the ground running when the RFA comes out. In the past, the grants required a 50% match. I don't anticipate that this would change. So for every dollar you're requesting in grant funds, you would need to put up $1 of your own money. And in the past, there has been a minimum project size. So you have to request at least a $15,000 grant, which would mean because it's a one-for-one match, it has to be at least a $30,000 project. And this has tripped some people up who really only need like a $10,000 project. And then the maximum grant that you can request is $50,000. So the biggest fully funded project would be $100,000. Although you could actually, the most grant funding you're going to get is $50,000. So you could do a $200,000 project in which you're only getting 25% of the costs from the state. Most of the grants that have been funded have been in the $20,000 range in the past. This grant in the past, and I also don't think this would change, is reimbursable, which means you pay the funding out and then you get reimbursed. And therefore, credit history and the ability to provide the match and get the funding to do the project is really seriously considered in this grant program. You need to provide proof of having the matching funds available or some type of a commitment letter from a bank for a loan. Because what they don't want is to give the grant to somebody who then doesn't have the wherewithal to even start the project. You need to provide proof that you can meet the minimum 10,000, that you've met really the minimum $10,000 in farm income from sales. So in the past, they've asked to see tax returns as proof. And then because this is an economic development grant, business growth, like new positions, new farms that you intend, new markets, that really matters. So this grant program is not going to support a failing farm or a farm that just, is looking to stay afloat, that's not profitable. They're really looking to invest in growth farms. You are, and from past rounds, and I think this would also continue to be the case, you're going to need to demonstrate that you can get in a timely fashion any needed building permits or other federal, state, or local permits or certifications for the work that you want to do. Because what they don't also want to have happen is that they give you the funding, they offer you the grant, and then it turns out the project's a complete non-starter because of zoning issues or historic preservation issues or wetlands issues or something that means that you can't actually do the project. Leased land is probably going to be eligible. It's been eligible in the past, but any projects on leased lands is going to probably need to be portable so that if you lose the lease, you can move whatever has been grant funded to a new location. So I would consider, like, if you lease your land, equipment would be a good thing to apply for, but buildings are going to be a harder sell. And you'll need a letter from the landowner that they support the grant. So the intent of this project is not to improve land for a landlord. It's to actually invest in a viable business. And then you absolutely are going to need to have a well fleshed out business plan as part of this grant. And that business plan should include this project. It must include this project. So that's something to consider. You're probably going to need to have to document the project costs with bids or quotes from suppliers. So they're going to want to know if you're saying that you need a $8,000 piece of equipment, they're going to want to see how you priced that, and is that a reasonable price? Any work that's reimbursed through this grant, whether it's electric, plumbing, is going to need to be done by somebody who's licensed to do the work in New York. And there may be other requirements for who can be hired. So because it is a New York State grant program and they have their own set of requirements. A farmer who obtains a grant for construction purposes can do the work themselves. So let's just say you get a grant for a high tunnel. You could, you could actually assemble the high tunnel yourself, but the value of your labor will not count towards your matching funds. If you hire somebody to assemble the high tunnel and you pay them to do that, then that could count as match, but your own labor does not count as match. So last year, this is how the points were awarded, and this is something that would be likely to be the same going relatively the same in future years. Thoroughness of the application is 10 points. Having a really strong business plan and supporting material that describes how this project will improve farm profitability and meet the goals was worth 20. Applicant experience and financial soundness is 15. The farm operation and project implementation, the type of an operation it is, was 15. The project budget and then the availability of the match is worth 20. I mean, so showing you can do the project financially is key. But financial need is worth 10. So if you are a billionaire hedge fund person, this may not be the right grant for you. But if you are, a sort of an up and coming business and you've hit a financial wall and this money will make a huge difference in, increasing growth, then that would give you some points. And then advances the farmer's career in farming. That's vaguer, but I would say if you are at the, let's say you're in your 30s and 40s, and this timely investment is likely to like really launch a business that's got, years and years of really positive contributions, that's going to weigh more heavily than somebody who's, 85 years old looking for an investment with no guarantee that that business is going to be sort of sustained in the long run. And this is a really competitive grant program. It's a very unusual grant program in that it pays for infrastructure. So only applications that can score 80 points or more in the past have been considered for funding. So to apply, I just want to reiterate again that this is a really, really, really complex application. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of letters that you might need of support from bankers or from people who can testify to your sort of skills. And it's possible that it could change. But in the past, the program has had some very minor changes, and the bulk of the application has been the same every year. So one thing that you can do is to look at New York State Economic Development website, and they will, eventually release the RFA, and they, do provide some information about the program. But another good idea is to look at last year's application to get a sense of like what pieces are you actually going to have to pull together. And this link here will take you to last year's application. I was able to find it online, but there is no link to it off the Empire State Development website, so you will need this link. But yeah, if you can't find it, let me know and I can send it to you. So here are my tips for success. First, look at last year's application and start pulling your materials together as soon as possible if you plan to go forward. It's a very there's a lot of moving pieces with this application, and it's not a last minute kind of deal. This program really strongly favors organic farms and farms with a sustainable agriculture or environmental bent. So think about how your project can have an environmental benefit, as well as show documented growth in the business if you really want to be competitive. Look at the farms that have been funded and the projects that they have requested. Although this grant is also for new farms, the very competitive proposals seem to come from farms with like 3 to 5 years of experience. So they're going to want to see a track record of success and a track record of growth in order to really feel like the state's funding is likely to make a difference and to like help sort of increase increase this farm's impact in the community. They're not really looking to just sort of help keep a marginal business that doesn't really add a lot in jobs or in sort of multiplier impacts going. So with that, once again, I'm Liz Higgins, and all of this information is available on my Google Sites site or a link off of our Eastern New York Commercial Hort Team website. Next month, I plan to cover farm labor housing grants, unless something more pressing should come up. So otherwise, I guess this next webinar will be the last Monday in October.